And so, game week 26 looks like being more of a problem than I originally thought. With Diallo injured and Gakpo a doubt, Liverpool up against a resurgent Man City and Newcastle appearing to have their minds firmly on Wembley. With my trip strategy now up in the air with the double game week 32 announcement, and with my team only having one free transfer to do anything about it, just when it looked like I was coasting to the League of Gentlemen title and an elite finishing rank, those FPL gods have shaken up the board, and they've reminded us all that you can never take anything for granted in this game. And in just one short moment I'll discuss my trip strategy and transfer plans for the next 2 game weeks. But first, this is where we're at right now. After the emotional highs of game week 24, with Mighty Moyes' last gasp 22-pointer somewhat negating triple captain Salah, game week 25 brought my lords crashing back to earth. As the deadline approached, I was as indecisive as I've ever felt, with several game plans still in my mind as the clock counted down, and ultimately I resorted to the safe option of Gordon to Cliver and Moyes to Emery for a hit. And as you can see, my game week has not gone according to plan, with my difference makers flattering to deceive and my new signings underwhelming. And yet it could have all been so different if only I'd had the courage of my convictions, because I called this game week perfectly. I said on Twitter that the power of my daughter's anime was leading me to Dango, and then I went for Clivert. I said last week that Marco Silva was the assistant manager to go for, and he got 18 points. In my private correspondence with the villainous Grinchy Vot, I even called Big Paul Onuachu and that blasted Marmouche, and yet fear wormed its way into my psyche and left me crippled with indecision. I resorted to the safe popular picks, and now my lead at the top of the world's greatest mini-league is far less secure than it was, with both the Dragon and Red Hot Rob cranking up the pressure. And as I record, there's still that Villa and Liverpool fixture to play, but whatever happens in that game, I doubt it'll be enough to make a significant difference, given the way both my rivals and I have set up our squads. But who knows, maybe you'll be sat there smiling because somehow everything fell perfectly for my midweek maestros, or maybe you'll be laughing because it's all gone tits up and you're desperate for me to fail. Either way, there's no point in dwelling on what's gone before and what might have been, because all I can do is look to the future and figure out a strategy to swing that momentum back in my favour.
That's what being a boss is. You steer the ship the best way you know. Sometimes it's smooth, sometimes you hit the rocks.
And I have to be honest, young Amad's season-ending injury is a real spanner in the works. He was my secret weapon for game week 29, and I had just the right amount of transfers to navigate that round with a good squad and no need for my free hit. However, big decisions must now be made, and that begins with the assistant manager. If I'm to change Unai Emery for game week 26, then that leaves me with only 10 players for game week 29 unless I take a hit, and one of those players is an Ipswich defender. It isn't ideal, not by a long shot. So I need to decide whether to stick with Emery and give myself that extra transfer, or whether I change my assistant manager, and I accept I'm either going to have to take a hit or start that game week with just 10 players. Looking at the alternative assistant managers for game week 26, there aren't any real table bonus options that come to mind. West Ham or Southampton hold little appeal, and my Newcastle getting thrashed means Pep Guardiola's off the table. If I had to take a punt on the table bonus, honestly I'd be tempted by Vitor Pereira at Wolves, because they've tightened up considerably in the last few game weeks. They've played Arsenal, Villa and Liverpool. They only have an expected conceded goals of 3.21 from those 3 games. games. They beat Aston Villa, and in the precocious Cunha, they have a man capable of winning any match. Furthermore, I distinctly remember Fulham being on a decent run of form when Wolves rocked up and stuck 4 past them at Craven Cottage, and this Bournemouth match has similar vibes. However, Wolves have won only 5 matches this season, and I just don't think I can bring myself to spend a transfer to take that risk, not with the state of play the way it is. With that being said, if Villa fail to beat Liverpool, then that means Oliver Glasner will be on for that table bonus. And even at the cost of a transfer, I may well take that punt, because Palace are unbeaten in their last 8 away matches with 3 draws and 5 wins, and those 5 wins came in the last 6 games on the road. However, we must factor in quality of opposition to that run of fixtures, and Ipswich, Leicester, West Ham and Man United are not what you would describe as elite opposition. Brighton and Hove Albion, though, they are a similar quality to Fulham, and Palace did beat them 3-1 away at the Amex. And with big man Mateta in sensational form, there's every chance Glasner could dig me out of the hole this blasted trip has got me in. And the flip side is, if Palace cannot get that table bonus, then it means Unai Emery has secured at least 18 points against Liverpool. So the need to gamble will lessen, and my faith in Villa against Chelsea will increase, which could end up saving me a transfer. But you know what I'm like. If Emery somehow does match Moyes' score from game week 24, I'm gonna start feeling like my luck's in, and that Pereira temptation will rise. You'll know more watching this than I do recording it, but those are my thoughts. Stick with the ass man you have, unless either Glasner is available or you're wild enough to run with the Wolves. Outside of that cursed trip though, transfers are a little bit trickier. The problem I'm having is that this season appears to have become very volatile very quickly. Teams are getting thrashed one week and doing their thrashing the next. So many lesser lights are shining bright, while those dependable options are failing to ignite. Double game weeks are being announced hours before deadlines and throwing everything into disarray, and it's making those master plans increasingly difficult to formulate.
This is basic math, but basic math is too easy for you burros. So I'm gonna teach you algebra because I'm the champ.
When times get as turbulent as this, I believe it's best to keep the strategy simple for the game week ahead, then reassess the following game week. Those upcoming blanks though, they don't half complicate matters. So for now, let's keep it simple. My team has 2 issues, Cody Gakpo and Amad Diallo. Both need replacing in these upcoming back-to-back game weeks, and I've only got 1 free transfer for each, so I need to assess the immediate priority, and for me that seems like it's Gakpo. He's more expensive. If he is fit, he plays City, and if he isn't, that's more money left on my bench. And look, I know you're thinking he has that game against Southampton in game week 28, but I've no interest in keeping the lad. That Southampton game is right in the middle of 2 Champions League games, with 2 games against Newcastle either side of those, and one of those is the cup final. If Cody Gakpo is first choice, then that Southampton match is the optimum chance to rotate him out and keep him fresh. And even if he does play, let's face it, we're not talking about a Salah, Haaland or Isak here. It's Cody Gakpo. He averages 1 return every 2 appearances. I'd rather have Cunha against Everton or Mateta against Ipswich that week. So for me, selling Gakpo is an easy decision, except if I go for Mateta, who is easily the best option given his form and fixtures are all better than Gakpo. Then I'd still have 7 blanks in game week 29 and only 3 free transfers, and I really don't want to use that free hit. So if I rule out Mateta as a Gakpo replacement, then that leaves me only 2 options, Matthias Cunha or Omar Mamouche. We all know what Cunha can do, but your man Mamouche is a tantalising prospect. Guardiola Guardiola said City need to spot his runs earlier. Then they went out against Newcastle. They picked him out every time. And the exquisite Egyptian finished with both style and panache. You can call it reactionary, but we always say in this game information is king. And now we know Marmoush is the real deal. At only £7.1 million, he could well be essential. However, he does play Liverpool this week, whereas Cunha has a Bournemouth who have just conceded to Southampton. And Cunha has proven himself an elite operator throughout the season, so it's not as simple as move for Marmoush. For me, if you're wanting to avoid that free hit in game week 29, then Marmoush and Cunha are the only Gakpo replacements to consider. And my gut is telling me Marmoush is the one. I'm just not sure if Liverpool is the best entry point, and it is a coin toss decision, so I may well defer it until game week 27 and instead replace Amad Diallo this week.
The world seems simple to you, my friend, but when you're a king, very few choices are simple.
And when it comes to Amad's replacements, that's a more difficult call than you'd originally think. My initial reaction is to get in Big Dango, given he's cheaper than Amad. He's playing up front and he has a glorious run of games until it's wildcard time. Yet that would mean a Bournemouth double up, and I'm not entirely convinced that's the best strategy, because they are performing at a level which is difficult to maintain. And my beloved Newcastle show me all the time how even a small drop in those levels can have disastrous results. However, there are some other great options. I have 7.4 million to replace Amad with, so I could go for Bowen, Maddison, Savinho or Eze, but for various reasons they just don't appeal. There's a much hyped Ethan Nwaneri, and he is a tempting option. It's not often you can get Arsenal starting right winger as an 8th attacker for 4.5 million. However, that front line he's in is very weak, so opportunities for returns may end up being very limited. The real tempter is the informed Mitoma against Southampton, but looking ahead to game week 29, he'd be away at Man City, which makes it harder for me to bring him in, especially when Bournemouth are at home to Brentford that week. Having talked it all through, my gut instinct feels like it has been strengthened, and I'm now convinced Big Dango Ouattara is the way to go. So in conclusion, over the next 2 game weeks, I'll be signing Dango and either Cunha or Marmoush, meaning I can keep my free hit for later in the season, which makes me feel a little bit more in control of the situation. That leaves me with this team for game week 26, followed by this team for game week 27 and beyond. And yes, it's a simple plan, but it's a good plan, and right now I think that's what's best for my FPL team. And my advice to you is to do something similar and keep it simple yourselves. And yes, that game week 26 team will involve a hit if I bring in a new assistant manager, but when it's a trip as powerful as that, I'm prepared to pay the 4 points cost to maximise my chances of returns, because I'm still trying to chase down that world #1, and that means sticking my neck on the line and taking a risk every now and then.
Let's do it tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow! There is no tomorrow!
As we attempt to navigate the stormy seas of the FPL season, it's easy to find ourselves thrown overboard by the rocking of the ship and the crashing of the waves. It's never just one issue to deal with. It feels like smooth sailing right up until the water enters our vessel, and we are hit with the sinking realization that we are at the mercy of the external elements. The natural reaction is to panic, but that just makes our defences easier to permeate, and our seasons more likely to end up in the briny deep. When I started this recording, I felt the abyss calling, but now I feel I have the keys to escape Davy Jones's locker, and whether they be in the form of Unai Emery, Oliver Glasner or Vitor Pereira, whether the breakers of chains prove to be Dango, Marmoush or Cunha, I end this video with more belief than how I began. This season will not see me cruising to victory. It will not be a leisurely coast up the rankings, and that world #1 spot may well have already sailed away on the high seas, but like the great philosopher Dory, I will just keep swimming. When you're this high up the rankings, every extra position is so much harder to claim, every green arrow is so much more difficult to achieve, and it's easy to get washed away by the currents that come to the pressure and sink back down. But this is what we work so hard for. This is what we all dream of at the start of each season's voyage. And though those FPL gods keep on exerting their power, I'm not going to throw myself to Poseidon's realm and beg for mercy. You're all gonna have to make me walk the plank, and even then I'm gonna try and hit a triple backflip and go out in style. And so ahead of the back-to-back game weeks 26 and 27, let me just say, may all your transfers be successes, may all your arrows be green, and may those FPL gods be in your favour. Uncover that buried FPL treasure by hitting those like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you next time.
It's an FPL nightmare, got me pulling out my hair. I'm the greatest football manager to ever grace the old armchair, but the FPL gods hate me, and no one seems to care that my points are only average, and my ranking is not fair.